Hey everybody, welcome to HIT.OR.DIE podcast, episode 67. We're here with your hosts, Jake Saldati and Chad Rothford, and we're here at one of the best performance athletic facilities in our area. I haven't been in the state, but in our area for sure, at Bullett Performance Training, BBT. We're here with the owner, Brandon Bullett. Thank you for joining us on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
This place, just a little background, is for athletes, any ages, elementary school all the way up to professional athletes are here. And it's also for just the average Joe that just wants to get healthy and lose some weight and get better. And he's got people in here that are 70 and older, 60, whatever. So it's an all-around performance place. They do some physical therapy stuff, but it's based on the athlete itself. Not everybody has the same workout. It's based on your position you might play in that sport, so sport specific. It's also position specific and athlete specific. So by far, this is the place you want to go if you want to get better as an athlete and boost your performance for on the field activity, and also just for the normal person that wants a healthier lifestyle. So we'll get right in with Brandon Bullett and just a little bit on your background of we talked previous before this. You're a hockey guy, not from here. Just kind of your story, how you came into, getting here and starting this up.
Absolutely. So I'm from a small town in Syracuse, New York. Grew up playing all sports: football, baseball, basketball, soccer. I didn't start playing hockey until later in life. When I was 15, I put on my first pair of skates, and I just love sports. Baseball was predominantly the sport I played. That's probably my best sport. I don't know why I ever gave it up, but I ended up at 15 years old, all my best friends played hockey. So I ended up, one of my buddies gave me his old pair of skates when he bought a new one, and they were a couple sizes too big. So I remember I had to put on extra pair of socks and stuff a pair of socks up in the toes just so it kind of felt good and it fit. But they were all skating on Friday nights, and I was like, Mom, I'm going to start playing hockey. And she's like, what? Hockey? What is it? My parents just weren't really big hockey players, baseball, and that was pretty much all we knew. So when I started playing hockey, very tough, very, very long hours to try to get better, starting late in my life. So ended up going to junior college to play some baseball. And I played a little hockey on the side. About a year and a half in, I ended up saying, hey, I'm going to give this hockey thing a shot. I got an opportunity to go out to Bakersfield. And when I was talking to the coach there, he was telling me, it's going to be a good opportunity for you. We've got a young team. Being a 20-year-old player, I was going to be one of the older guys, and given the responsibility of being kind of a leader and a captain, and I took that opportunity, and I was like, you know what, it could come to fruition. Something might come of it. So I ended up coming out there, or going out here to Bakersfield in 2009. Ended up playing that year out, and about halfway through the year, I ended up getting traded to a team in Phoenix, actually, which we then came and played against Fresno a few times. And I had a big rivalry and a big history against Fresno, which is kind of ironic that I live here now and I have a business here, and all the guys I played against and all the families that rooted against me, I'm super close with and all friends with. So ended up playing after that. After 2010, I ended up playing about 3.5 years of minor league professional hockey, bouncing around from Chicago area to Texas, a little bit in Mississippi, up to Indiana. I was all over the place. So, and then in late 2012, my girlfriend found out she was pregnant. So I ended up hanging up the skates and moving out here. And then, from there, I started giving hockey lessons. And then hockey lessons turned into kids asking to come train with me. And then I had enough kids coming to train with me, and I was, working out at GB3, and they were working out next to me. And I'm like, hey, maybe I can make something of this. So I ended up going to a small place and about 2,400 square feet, and just built it out from there. And I saw a population in baseball that really needed a good attention to. We hear that a lot of baseball players, are hurting shoulders and elbows and whatnot. And coming from, my past injury of tearing my rotator cuff in 2007, I had to, learn a lot about the body, how it moved, what basic kinesiology and basic, anatomy was, and then just kind of self-taught everything as I was going through. A lot of continuing education, a lot of seminars, a lot of traveling to facilities, like Eric Cressey's facility in Massachusetts and Florida, and just learning from those guys. Every piece of information they had out there, I was reading it. there's some research, there's some online research that the ASMI put out, on baseball players, and I was reading everything from top to bottom, just to find out what I could learn about how the body works and how to help baseball players, and just trying to find baseball players that wanted to train. So I found one kid in Jacob King, and that was my first athlete ever. And he just brought another guy the next week, and they brought another guy the week after that, and it just started turning into a bunch of baseball players. And we had some adults in there, and just turned into hard work and my passion and dedication really to build the business. And now we moved into a 5,000 square foot facility, and looking to continue to building, and continue expanding. So that's kind of been a little bit of a brief, 2007 to about 2020 where we're at now.
Yeah, a lot of work probably within those 10, 13 years. Yeah. And talk about some of the clientele around here, though. I mean, it's super passionate people, especially when it comes to baseball. What are some things that you try to, offer different age groups of kids, though? I mean, you get from, a 10 to 12-year-old up to, a high school kid and even a pro athlete that comes in here.
Sure. So when I first started, I knew I couldn't just jump into being a baseball guy. There's an old saying out there, you got to be a good generalist before you're, a good specialist. And I really took that, and I worked with everybody. I had 8-year-olds. I was working with 10, 12. We had all the high school kids, and, that's predominantly what our clientele is made of. And then we have a couple of minor league pro guys, a couple of college guys, and then we had adults too, everyday, adults that need to be healthy and need to feel good and go to work the next day. So you can't really, put them at risk. Got to be smart with their training. And then we have, older clients, upwards of, we had 50s and 60s, and, we've got close to a 70-year-old in here now. And those are the things you have to be conscious and you have to be aware of when you're, training those guys, that you can't just throw exercises at them. So what we do is when the athletes first come in, or when the clients first come in, we go through an initial evaluation. And that evaluation goes over like their training history, their injury history, any complications with health that they may have if they're, an adult client. Or even a young client. Some clients have some health history going on there and some complications. So we go through a thorough conversation about that stuff. And then we get into like a movement screen. So essentially we see how they move. We can identify flexibility limitations. We can identify any movement compensations. And then from there, we really try to be thoughtful on their programming strategy as far as like what exercises we give them, so that, number one, it's kind of meeting them where they're at, and trying to get them to be in the best position as possible. So for our young guys, I mean, we're focusing more on the basic fundamentals, the basic movement patterns of squatting, hinging, lunging, pushing, pulling, carrying, and then basic plyometrics, getting them to understand how to, shuffle, getting them to understand how to sprint, how to do a high knee run or something simple like that, just so that they can develop, a good movement library, and they can develop some good, rich, proprioceptive, training strategies. So for the young guys, we focus more on the basic patterns. And even for the older guys, we want to focus on the basics first. And then once we identify and they can show us that they move well, then we can start getting complex with their training. And then same thing for the adults that want to come in and they just want to feel healthy and they want to move better. We can really identify, if we have some bankers in here that sit all day, so we want to make sure that we're moving their hips and we're getting them mobile so they can feel better, move better, and we just improve quality of life.
Yeah, I think, being an athlete and trying to work on your craft, like, first base, you got to work on footwork and stuff. So go into identifying, movements, but for position-specific athletes.
Sure. So, obviously with different sports, we deal predominantly, we obviously a lot of hockey in here. We work with the Fresno Monsters, so we know tendencies of the athletes. They got to be quick. They got to move really fast in a small area. Very rarely in hockey do you ever get a wide open breakaway. It's pretty rare. So you got to be able to teach them that footwork is about, absorbing force and quickly producing it in the opposite direction. Same thing with baseball. You guys got to be able to, have a pre-pitch set up. And then once you set your feet from there, you got to be on the balls at your feet and then make a quick decision based on where the ball is hit. It's a lot of, we start with progressing from more so of controlled agility to where, they know where they're going. And then we progress, slowly over each month or each phase of our training into more of a reactive, into more of we got to make a quick decision, depending on the coach is calling out a color or a number, or you're watching another player, so you're doing more reactive drills. So we really work on, and we try to implement some chaotic drills into our training so that we get the athletes ready to handle what they're going to see on the field. You can't basically give them what they're going to do. They got to start figuring it out for themselves, and they got to start having some quicker reaction time, some quicker thinking, in a timely manner.
Try to make it as realistic as possible.
Sure.
Yeah, I want to go back to the younger guys just for a second, because we talk about travel ball or those younger kids that are playing virtually year round now. Like, as a guy that works with younger kids, and going through basic stuff, is it too much? I mean, are they putting their bodies through more than they could probably handle? How much rest do you think they should be getting?
That's a slippery slope.
Is that a parent determination type thing?
Yeah, that's kind of like a little question. So what we do
if it was your son,
if it was my son, I would get him playing different sports, and all the way up until he's about 16, 17, then we'll focus. A lot of people forget that playing different sports gives you more of a movement library. It allows you to, from basketball, just playing hoops, it's a lot of lateral, a lot of quick, movements, and it's chaos, right? You're trying to make moves, and that allows you to get more of a lateral component to where, if you're baseball, it's pretty what we call as low variable sport. Obviously you're fielding ground balls, but you're swinging. How many swings do you make doing the same motion? That's what we call as low variability. Same thing pitching. You make throws. That's a low variability. You're performing the same movement over and over and over again. And those are high amplitude exercises. So throwing a baseball is the fastest motion in sports. You're trying to chuck that 5-ounce baseball as hard as you can, and you don't get a lot of variety. So what we try to do is give those kids variety, and I think that's what more younger kids need. I think they need more variety. And there's a ton of studies out there that show, multi-sport athletes have lower risk of injury. And, you just think about how many throws those young kids make, and are their bodies strong enough to handle the demands of that throwing motion? Are their bodies strong enough to handle the demands of that swinging the bat? Those kids get a 27-ounce bat. That's a heavy implement that those kids are swinging around. It's a lot of taxing on the body and the spine, specifically. So
with them still growing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Yeah, you're not fully grown till sometimes in your 20s.
Yeah,
because we talk about it in the sense of burnout.
Yeah,
right? The kids are going to get burned out with baseball, but I'm just talking about. I was thinking just body wise. How much stress can a 10-year-old really take?
Well, especially
who knows how many innings they're throwing
if he's not at a place like this either. So that's where I think, okay, if this guy's playing year round, is he just playing baseball? Well, or is he like going to a workout facility and preparing his body to play year round?
Yeah, I think if you're spending the money, on a hitting coach and on a travel team, that you should be doing this side of it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You
can't just play the sport without the physical,
or just to gaining some knowledge.
Yeah, sure.
Of how to go about that stuff. I don't know. Do you see a lot of that? Kids come in just totally mind blown and unaware, and then they come here and it's like, whoa.
Yep. Yeah. We have that's part of what the initial evaluation kind of goes over to. We implement a lot of conversation with the parents and the kids in the beginning before they even start training here. Hey, listen, we'd like to start bringing up the workload talk, and when we start talking about that, we ask, how often do you play? What's your playing season like? What's your year like? And we start to not only inform the kid, but inform the parents as well as, hey, listen, even professional baseball players take some time off. Even, college baseball players take some time off. That's only going to help them recover from the stress and the damage they do to the shoulder or the hips or the back or whatever have you. There's supposed to be some scheduled time off in there. And that's only for their longevity. We here at Bullett Performance, we have staff meetings weekly. We have an hour in service or an hour staff meeting every Thursday, and we go over stuff like, how do we have that conversation with parents? What's the strategy? And then what are the what are the protocols? How often should we be educating kids on throwing? We talk about throwing programs. We talk about hitting lessons. We talk about scheduling your sessions based upon the work you're doing outside. So we really implement that into our initial evaluation on trying to educate the parents and try to get a good feeling for what they do outside, so that we know, hey, we really need to focus more on lower volume for this kid because he's already doing a lot outside, and we don't want to just add more on top of what he's already doing. There's a tipping point to what every person has in their work capacity or their tolerance, to stress. Everybody's got that, and we have to find what's enough for that person or that player.
Especially with if a kid's getting overworked, what is that kid or parent probably going to choose? The sport.
Yeah.
They'll probably be like, okay, well, I guess you don't need to go to workouts now. We'll just go. So that you're almost, so you have to be careful to not lose a client by overexerting their body. So that makes total sense.
I just think if you're paying the money for that, you better listen.
Oh yeah,
to
for sure.
To what you're being told, and I'm sure most people are.
Well, I mean, you don't get that at a gym. You can't just go to a gym and have, because gyms have personal trainers and stuff. Sure. But that personal trainer doesn't know you. He doesn't know your background. He doesn't know all that stuff.
Well, I think one of the things and I don't know if there's other gyms around here that do what you do. And they're probably CrossFit stuff and whatever. You're not a CrossFit gym, correct?
No, we are strength and conditioning. I mean, when people say, "Oh, what do you do inside there?" I mean, we use all types of training. I mean, we do Olympic lifting here, but that's what people that, number one, have a good training history, or they have to be able to learn it, right? So we get a lot of, even baseball players. Our first choice of the baseball players to get in throwing med balls, jumping, plyometrics, sprinting, and then just basic lifting. If our college guys come in, or if it's a high school guy and he comes in and he's got a college program that hang cleans, I want him to learn how to hang clean before he goes there. And, that way it's not starting from level one, right? We want him to understand, what are the basics and what are the fundamentals of hang cleaning, so that when he goes into his program, coach knows, or strength coach knows, like, hey, this guy's been putting in time to learn, and we want them to be prepared for what's coming, right? Whether it's pro baseball, whether we got a minor league guy going into and trying to make, single A, double A roster, we want to prepare them for what they're about to handle. Same thing with high school guys going into college. We just had a kid come from Buchanan that's going to Stanford now, and it's not only educating and when they're in the high school weight room. I mean, a lot of the high school coaches are running their weight room programs and more on the bar. You hear kids telling us, hey, coach is just telling me to put more on, and I know the coaches, aren't trying to do them harm, and they want to make them stronger, but there's a certain way to go about it. There's certain progressions and certain, loads that you want to progress to. And that's kind of what we focus on here is, making sure the kids can move well, move efficiently, and can actually get the technique and form down before we start loading on a bunch of weight.
Yeah, there's a high school game is different.
Well, there's not a lot of strength coaches at high schools. They just can't afford to, have a strength coach.
Well, and the other thing is you have kids that be playing other sports too.
Yeah.
So
like football is a lot different than the baseball and so forth.
But I think for us, you got a lot of kids doing other things. We're focused on really freshmen and so 14, 15-year-old kids, trying to ease them into that process. Have some pro guys come in and did they kind of just give you a plan ever of this is what I'm trying to do and you adapt or work a plan within what they're trying to do mentally?
Yeah, certainly. We've had a couple guys, actually one specifically, and Eric Stout. He came here for a few weeks and he actually trains at Cressy's and now Palm Beach Gardens. But he came here with his training program and he said, hey, what do you think? And I gave him my thoughts and input on it, and I asked him, what's been working for you? He's been training for 6 years, 7 years, plus, and things have been going well, and I don't want to change really anything they're doing much. I'll give my 2 cents and I'll give my opinions and my thoughts on it, and let's see how we can collaborate. And that's pretty much how we work here. I mean, it's not a one-way street. It's not come in here and it's not drill sergeants. It's give us some feedback. It's a 2-way street. How does that exercise feel? Is that something that you struggle with? What's been working for you in the past? And we really have a good conversation about what works for them, especially with our pro guys that come in and they've been training for a while. It's not like you want to sit there and kind of be a general or a sergeant to them and kind of tell them what to do. You want to take their thoughts and their opinion and their knowledge too. So I try to learn from all of our athletes just as much as they learn from us. It's a big two-way street, and it works really well for us.
Well, it's more knowledge you gain.
Yeah, sure.
It just benefits you more, and it's also the difference too between going into a gym and just paying a trainer who may not have a background in football. Because I've seen you work with a couple track athletes. Yep. And even hockey. You go to your hockey guys. Not only are you talking about quickness and agility with them, but they also have to be able to take an impact.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It's a very violent and a lot of collisions and a lot of beating on the body.
Well, I was going to say, being an athlete with I have an elbow issue. So bar bench was a no-go for me.
Sure.
So, like, if I came in and that could be, like, one of your thing, I could be like, I can't bar bench.
Sure.
I could do dumbbell bench or, dumbbell incline. Nothing with a bar. I couldn't even squat with how my elbow was. I always had to do leg press. So, I mean, I'm sure that's in the initial conversation you have with athletes, and they, so this guy can't do certain things, and, we're going to do this instead that work out the same kind of muscles and get that athlete better.
Yeah, that's a big piece. I mean, there's a lot of kids that come in, recovering from either elbow surgery, maybe they had some sort of injury to the shoulder, and they can't grab onto a bar, in a back squat, or they can't front squat. We've got some specialty bars, and we've got a lot of different types of bars that accommodate for injuries like that. And that's kind of been the sweet addition that we've made in the past. I think I bought them about a year ago. And just trying to work around what players can do and what players can't do. I mean, you think a lot of players go, to your skill development stuff, your hitting coaches, your pitching coaches, and they're trying to, generate faster speeds and velocities and exit velocities and all that. And sometimes, physically they just can't get to those positions. And the more you hammer those hitting drills and hitting lessons or pitching lessons, you're never going to gain physically what you need to be able to get that outcome. And that's kind of where we come in. We really try to fit the program to that athlete. Say a kid comes in, he has no internal rotation. Well, he's going to have some shoulder issues if he keeps throwing that way. Pitching lessons aren't going to help that. You have to make a change physically first before you can go out and make that skill change. And that's where we really come in, and that's where we try to, complement what they're doing out there, and not so much, just beat them to the ground, and make them throw up at the end of sessions, and that's not making kids better. That's where we really try to focus on making you better. Better is better, and more is not always better. So that's where we really focus on. I'd rather take lower volume, better quality over kids puking in the parking lot or anything like that. There's a lot of methodical ways that we work with our athletes that are very specific to what they see. Like even our pitchers and our hitters, we like them to come to the initial evaluation with some video of them swinging or pitching. That way we can kind of take a look and just use basic anatomy, basic kinesiology functions of the body and basically basic biomechanics. And listen, this is where you're either, leaking energy. This is where we can, get more from. And we put that in their training programs, whether it's by sprints or med balls or core work or whatever have you. We take a lot of what they do out in the box or in the batter's box or on the mound, and we can implement that in our training. And we can see how do we make that transition from weight room to field. So,
I remembered I was getting to. I don't know, but I was talking about trainers, and we were talking about gym memberships. You have multi athletes that in track athletes and female athletes. Do you have female trainers who are working with them also, and
absolutely, yep.
Some of the differences that they evaluate their processes as well?
Yeah, sure. We actually like to get a good variety in here. We've got a female coach. We actually have two female coaches, one who is on staff and one who's an intern. Learning to be on staff. It's a 3-month-long internship program to be hired onto our staff. And the reason why is we've got such a delicate process. We've got such a detailed process in our training programs and how we evaluate and how we assess and how we write programs and how we, basically program for a client, different types of clientele. It takes a lot to learn kind of what we do and the intricacies of our system. One of our female coaches is a swim and dive athlete from Cal Baptist, and she's finishing up her master's right now. And she's actually also interning at Fresno State while on our staff. So that's a ton of workload, and she can handle it. She's a very smart girl. But getting different demographics and different people, when we have a swim coach that if we ever get swimmers, swim and dive or water polo, hey, we've got a swim and dive coach that kind of understand that sport, and we can really help, and we can, rack our brains together and think of how to specifically program for that athlete. What does that athlete need? We also have a Fresno State grad that played football. I don't have the big football background. He does. He can tell us, what linemen, we need to get in good positions, some of the running plays and how they block and how they strategize as far as blocking, pass blocking, run blocking, stuff like that. And we take that thought and we put that into the training program. It can be basic, and it also can get pretty intricate if we want to.
Right, yeah, all that technique.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of technique, and maybe getting them into a better position during the lift helps them generate more force and keep them safe and healthy. That's kind of some things that we really like to
do. With all that's gone on the last, few months, you got a lot of pro guys, a lot of baseball guys that I've seen, go through the high school ranks around here, and
Sure.
It's awesome to see them, playing professionally. Do you think this place was kind of a savior for them, for the time being? I mean, because I can't imagine, we haven't been able to talk to many, and the ones we have talked to they've been kind of quiet about it, but
Sure.
not having, a field to go to right now or anywhere to compete the way they were expecting to compete, to come here and blow it all out. How do you think
Almost
that's
like that
helped?
atmosphere.
Yeah, like how do you think that's helped them?
Yeah.
Have you noticed any positive changes from it?
Oh yeah, we started working with some pro guys towards the end of last year. We really started to get our names out there, started reaching out and making contacts with some of the minor league pro guys, and they've come here, and it's really been a thing to see. Having them open up, and they're in here training with alongside other pro guys, and they can get after it and they can compete in here, whether it's ping pong, whether it's knockout with the little basketball hoop we got, whether it's spike ball, or whether it's just getting after it and lifting and talking crap to each other and kind of getting them going, whether to put on more weight on the sleds, more pushing and whatnot. But it's been something to sit back and watch, and when I look at what we have here, it's not so much of me tapping the guys in the butt to get them going. It's more so each other, are tapping them in the butt, and they're hooting and hollering at each other and getting themselves going, and that's pretty cool to see. And being able to, in the near future, maybe expand to a little bit bigger of a facility and maybe move on back here and open it up and have some cages. And we got some plans in the future to be able to do that and to offer, live ABs to where if they don't have the hitting, if they don't have somewhere to a field to go hit to, they can come here and they can throw live ABs against each other and get that, in action, that real time, batting or pitching, whatever have you. But they've been going out to, some of the high schools, and some of our pro guys have been pitching and hitting against other pro guys, and high school guys against high school guys, and college on college. And we've been trying to do that, but it's been tough actually to go out and find a field that's good. The mound's bad, or home plate's bad, or you can't get on that field, or what have you. So it's been that's put a little kind of stranglehold on what they want to do, and trying to stay in shape for next year. I mean, that's the biggest thing is, now you talk about the mental part, right? And kids are mental part's obviously the biggest part of the game. And if you're not being disciplined, and if you're not still being active and aggressive with your training, you could fall behind. And there's a lot of other guys out there really pushing and really trying to make a spot, on a pro team or on a college team, and you got to think like there's 100 other of me out there. What am I doing to separate myself, from them? And what am I doing for myself to put myself in the best position?
Are those conversations you have with, being a professional,
Yep.
Being able to relate to those guys maybe in a different sport, but being able to give them your background and talk about that kind of stuff?
Yeah, those are a conversation we have, I wouldn't say daily, here and there. I can see a lot from body language when guys come in. Maybe they're not looking so great. Maybe they miss a session, and that's not like them. Our pro guys actually have been pretty professional about that, and they don't miss sessions. That's the biggest thing is you're not missing time to develop, right? And where other guys are like, hey, I'll hit the gym tomorrow. That's one of the things that we really keep you accountable on is not so much of like banging on you if you miss a session, but educating and encouraging, and basically having that conversation that if you miss something, that's on you. And what do you want to do to get to where you want to go? We really try to just put it out there and paint a picture for them, if they're missing or if, they're not putting forth their best effort. Have a conversation and say, hey, what's going on today? And that's something that we really have done in the past, and it's been pretty helpful, I'd say.
Yeah, you really make it about them.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, you have, junior high kids, little league kids, looking at these pro guys, and if they miss a sesh or they're not, giving it their all, it's almost as a pro guy, you're thinking, I got to do it not only for myself, but all these youngsters that want to be like me.
Yep.
I got to, have that standard. So.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, some of our young guys, especially the middle schools and the high schools, they come in here and they can see pro guys training right next to them. And that's the coolest thing. Like, what better of a training facility or environment would you want than looking up to a guy or looking over to a guy working out right next to you that's in the spot you want to be in,
right.
And that allows them to feed off each other. So for our high school guys that are pitchers, we've got some pro pitchers walking around here, and they can say, hey, how do you work your grip for this pitch, or how do you work your grip for that pitch, or what's your mindset, when you go into a bullpen, or when you're throwing your flat ground, or if you got a position player, talking about hitting with a guy. That happens daily in here. If you walk in there and you just stand around for an hour, you'll see a lot of conversation from like the high school guys or the college guys or the pro guys, and they're talking about what they're doing holding the pitch, or what their mindset is of going into a pitch or an at bat or whatnot. And it's pretty cool. It allows not only the young guys to learn from the old guys, but the old guys learn how to lead, and how to educate the younger guys so that they can be leaders when they go back to their team. That's something that's, it's just not tangible. That makes a huge difference in here.
Well, it probably helps too with, we know a lot of your guys like Gamboa and Brink, and they're pretty humble about
Super
where
humble.
they've come from and where they are now. And
Very high, legit. Gamboa was one of the most legit athletes I'd ever been around.
yeah, athletic wise,
Yeah.
by far one of the top in this area. But like as a young high school kid or junior high guy, like Brink throws 98 to 100 miles an hour. I want to do what he's doing,
Yep.
So that helps too. Or Gamboa at the lefty, like, he's up to 94, 96. It's just, and then all the athletes are, you got Young as a catcher. I know he's a high school guy, but he's been one of your biggest, like from the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
Been here, as a catcher, look what he's doing. Like, okay, look at his legs and his,
Yep.
I could say ass because I'm on his show, but look at that, how he's doing his squats and what do you need to do as a catcher. I think that for the younger guys, it's good to look up to them and
talk
see that.
to them.
Yeah, like you're saying, that's the biggest thing is getting information.
Brink's, had to battle through a lot.
Yeah.
His journey has been, it's awesome, and he's easy to talk to.
Yeah, he
Super
is.
easy.
And Gamboa, all these guys have something to offer even beyond the game, and fundamentals and grips, and talk to them, get their mental side.
Yeah, and even our adults, it's funny. Like, McCarthy Tatum, the other day was just talking to one of our 54-year-old clients. They're chatting back and forth, and that's even cool, right? When you see a professional baseball player, young guy like Mac, talking to one of our general population or our adult clients, and just chit chatting back and forth. That's even cool, right? And these guys aren't jerks to where they're like don't talk to me, or they don't come off that way, that you don't get that vibe, and you just see our everybody's meshing, and that's kind of what I was thinking when I built this place, and we start to talk about philosophy and environment, and we want a family-like environment, because guess what, if Mac were to make the Phillies next year or something like that, and he's on one of their minor league teams, or he comes into town and plays, you bet like pretty much everybody's going to be out there watching, right? Everybody's going to go support him at the game or turn on the TV and watch him play wherever he is, or, whatever have you, certain situations like that. That's the cool thing, is where everybody's like a family in here, and it's pretty tight-knit. Everybody knows everybody's name, and everybody's talking to each other. That's special. It's pretty cool.
You got everybody pushing for each other. It goes a long way. And it
But
starts,
that helps in working out too.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to let, I don't want to let him down, but I don't want to let anybody down that's working out in here.
Sure.
That's a big part of the mental aspect of, that, because, one day Brink, Gamboa, Mac, they might be playing in front of 40,000 fans. They don't want to let those guys down. They have that atmosphere feel. That,
you might run into a scenario with, we talked Luplo and
Marcus
Walden who might face each other. It's pretty legit. Now, you were a baseball player. So what position was your strong suit?
Pitcher and third baseman. Those are my strong positions. I could play anywhere. I played a little bit of left field in college. Coach told me I couldn't play first, so I was too short. But I showed him actually I could in a couple of practices. He put me over there because I'm I guess a pot stir, and I'm always chirping and talking. I guess that's my hockey sense of me. But I was always yapping at him saying, give me a shot at first, give me a shot at first. He says, you're too small. And I said, I'll pick everything and I'll get up there and I'll climb the ladder and get it. So I played a couple of practices at first and never saw any game time there, but mostly pitcher, third base. That was left field. Probably those three positions were where I was at.
And growing up in the East Coast, so you had to deal with weather and.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was a heartbreaker when rainouts. I mean, I in Syracuse it rains it rains a lot in the summertime, and that's a heartbreaker when it rains. You're looking for time to go play with your buddies and getting after it with them on the field. And we had some good teams back when I was a young guy, probably from 12 to maybe 16, 17. We had some good teams, a lot of good memories back then.
And as a pitcher, was so third base or pitcher? What were you?
Where's your future?
Probably third base. I never took a gun to what I was throwing. That wasn't a thing back then. Like throwing velocity was a little bit. I mean, high school coaches would grab a radar and maybe clock you once or twice, but velo wasn't the talk it is now, obviously. And I had a decent fastball. I had a good 12-6 curve. I could either spin it big or have a nice tight spinner, but changeup was a tough one for me. I could not changeup grip was not something that I could figure out. I was all over the place with that. But third base, I could pick it. I could pick it and chuck it across. That was probably my best, I would say.
And there is a debate right now of the velo and how guys are training to throw harder versus, being okay with throwing 90, 91, 92, even upper 80s with location.
Yep.
How do you feel about all that stuff?
It's just like in here. When we talk about training our athletes, there's so many tools that we can use to train our athletes, whether we want to squat them with a dumbbell, whether we want to squat them with a kettlebell, whether we want to use a barbell, whatever. Those are all just different tools, and each player has got his own tools that makes him what he is. And whether a guy's a velo guy, all right, sounds good. We better make sure our arm's strong enough to handle that, though, right? And if a guy's a junk guy, we better make sure we got enough tissue extensibility in our arm and our lats and throughout our body, and we got enough mobility in our hips and our shoulder and our T-spine that we can kind of make those funky moves with our arms or our legs or whatever we want to do, right? So it's just the tool. And I mean, I like seeing the velo too. It's cool to see a guy chuck it up there and see 3 digits up there, but if you can't locate it, then you're having a hard time. If you've got some nasty stuff to where you're 91, 94 and all you can do is just spin some stuff, you make hitters look ridiculous. Heck yeah, let's
we've talked about it with the offensive side. You're talking about the best guys in the world to do it.
Yeah.
And not a lot of them
right
do it, and they locate as well as they do.
You got to think too, when you're chucking that 100 and plus, 97 plus, because the average fastball is what, 96, 97 now?
I think it was
something like that. You got to think though, how much stress is going to the body, right? So if you're not training to be strong, if you're not training your body to handle that, how long do you think you're going to last throwing that and being healthy and locating, right? So there's a catch-22 to that. And if you don't throw it that hard, there's not as much stress going to the body. So you might be able to throw a little bit longer. So there's pros and cons to everything in that aspect. So
yeah, and you see guys with different body types throwing that hard.
Sure.
Sonny Gray's a low to mid 90s guy, and he's not.
I think you're born with it or you're not.
Yeah,
I do. I think I'm not saying that the working out part doesn't help or get that, but I mean, there's no way you're making me, even when I was in my prime, throw 97. It's just not. It's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
It's not gonna happen. There's guys that can just wake up and freaking as they grow, you know, they're going to throw their elasticity or whatever in their arm is just better than somebody else, and they're going to throw harder. But just maintaining it is what you're talking about.
Sure,
maintaining your body, maintain, you know, the strength and all that. But let's be honest, there's no freaking way.
There's no way I'm throwing 97.
Right?
I'm too small. I mean, unless I played and threw.
But your body could handle 90. That's what I'm saying is your body could handle 97.
Yeah,
But you're not going to throw 97.
I've only seen a couple guys. I've only had a couple guys that I've ever coached make like massive gains.
And that will happen, but that's also with
Gamboa's
growing, you know.
Maturation's a huge
Mechanics, that could be a factor, you know. But I feel like, you know, there's this.
Well, I mean, it obviously happened from high school to
Yeah, because is
college.
he still growing? Is he getting bigger?
Well,
was he in a weight room in high school? Was he
or a different weight room? Or
was he doing the right lifts? Was he maintaining that arm?
You also got to think too nowadays. I mean, obviously with the weighted balls, the plyo care balls, and all that. You know, if they were around back then, would we have an advantage? Because I know a lot of schools, a lot of colleges, and you know, pro guys and pro teams use those plyo care programs. You know, with Driveline and all that. If that was around back, you know, when we were young, could we have a chance to throw, you know, 96, 97, maybe, you know, a little bit more? Because that's been shown to, you know, those plyo balls are not only to put a little bit heavier ball in your hand so you think you're throwing heavier, but a lot of the research for that has shown that it cleans up arm mechanics, you know. So if we had those balls around, what would it be like back then? You know, will our guys be throwing harder, throwing faster? Not now. Everybody throws 100. You know, now everybody throws hard.
Yeah, or
you
they're
got to be
trying
able to pitch too. You know, so just throwing a baseball. I mean, you could see it in when Chapman was when the Cubs won the World Series, right? So you started seeing guys time Chapman. The guy throws hard, you can time that. You know, but if he throws hard and he can mix some speeds and he can quote unquote pitch, now you're working with a different animal.
And he's become a little more of a pitcher.
And he's learned to change some
years.
speeds, you know, and all that. So
unless there's like a trash can around somewhere.
No, I'm not even getting into that.
No.
No. I texted you.
I know.
That when that happened, I was sitting on the same exact pitch as Jose Altuve. Trash can or not,
this
I was
is a fact, okay?
I was sitting on the same.
I don't even know if we've ever brought it up, but after that home run to win the
what we're
series,
talking
I was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I'm a Yankees fan through and through. I'm Jorge Posada. I'm
okay,
Paul O'Neill.
Yeah,
Tino Martinez. That's what I grew up around. I mean, obviously Derek Jeter.
That's fair.
You know,
Bernie Williams. Always liked Bernie Williams.
Bernie, he was the man. He had the smoothest swing.
And who else? There's Scott Brocious.
Scott Brocious. Yeah. David Wells.
Yeah.
Oh,
My brother's a big Yankee. Don Mattingly is his hero. But he texted me and he was like, I was sitting slider the whole time there.
Yeah. I mean, it's over with, and I know everybody thought he guessed and everything, but if you go to the previous at-bats before that, his fastball, he wasn't throwing his fastball for a strike. So if you're anybody, and then he threw a fastball the pitch before that way outside. So if you're any kind of smart hitter, why would you be sitting on a 100-mile-an-hour fastball again? Because he throws 100 mile an hour? Well, we just said anybody can time that now because it's so, you know, everybody throws hard now. Yeah. It's not like you just got done facing somebody throwing 90. Now there's a guy throwing 100.
Right.
He just got done facing a guy throwing 97, 98. Now he's got a guy throwing 100. They see that so much that it's like second nature for him. So, yeah, I was sitting slider just like Altuve. And maybe that's because I was a guest hitter and that's what I did. And that's why people are like, oh, how could you be sitting slider when he throws 100? Well, it was also he was ahead in the count. So if he's willing to sit slider and take a fastball down the middle, he's willing to do that. Like I would. I'd be willing to take a fastball down the middle to sit slider on my pitch. So, you know, bang on a trash can all you want. I would have hit that slider out the yard too.
The Yankees should be pretty good this year, though.
Judge is on fire right now.
Yeah, so we'll see. We got to get Stanton working. You know, he's had a tough year last year, especially with some injuries and all that. And we'll see. If obviously on paper they got the talent to do it. You know, I wish they were able to keep Didi. Yeah. I really like Didi in that shortstop position after Jeter left, but we'll see.
Yeah, he can swing it too. That's an interesting situation over there in Philly because they have.
He'll play third maybe.
I thought, and I saw Segura said he'd move.
Segura said he would move to third.
He'd move. He's willing to move. But yeah, I like
hey,
Didi also.
when winning's more important than yourself, you know.
You adapt.
You do whatever.
That's right.
So, I mean, Harper was playing third the other day in their summer game.
Have any like high schools reached out? Any even to help develop a program, strength conditioning, or have you thought about reaching out to provide certain things for even junior high or high school athletes?
Certainly. So actually, in the last year, we worked with 3 high schools, and myself personally, I would drive out to the high school, and I would coach their weight room class, their PE class. We went to Buchanan, Memorial, and Kerman, and what I would do is set up their schedule, and I would basically just train them. Obviously a little bit different of a setting because I'm in their weight room with their equipment with all of their variables, to where in here I've got full control of what goes on here. Obviously there we're limited in time, and we've got a big variety of kids and that have never touched the weight, all the way up to obviously in Buchanan where Austin Young plays. It he's been with me for almost 4 years now. So now it's like, how do I meet in the middle, and also resources too. I've got myself, and in Buchanan's class there was upwards of 40 to 50 kids in the class. I don't have 40 to 50 eyes. In here I've got a little bit lower of a volume. I can control who's in, who's out, and our strength coaches do a very good job at keeping an eye on and coaching athletes through technique and form and what the goal is of that training, exercise or program or whatnot. It's a challenge. I'll be totally honest, even for me, having 8, 9 years, almost 10 years now in the field with this facility or my previous facility, it's a challenge working, coaching 50 athletes, and you think of colleges, well, if you're a D1 college, you've got interns, you've got GAs, other coaches to help you out, to where I, had the head coach kind of walking around sometimes and trying to do the best he can. And that was definitely a challenge to appeal to the older guys, to the seniors, and also appeal to the younger guys so that they can handle, the exercise or whatnot. So it was a lot of nights of racking my brain on what could possibly work. I had a whiteboard out. I had a couple of whiteboards out, and I was writing different programs and different exercises and trying to map out different layouts of the gym, that could possibly work. So there's a lot of work there trying to make that work. So
one of the things they see somebody new come in and that has a background in it and see them use their facility and the way they hadn't seen it before.
Sure.
They can turn around and use that to help them or repeat some of those same drills or get a different vision of how they can utilize the space they're in. Sure. So that's why I kind of asked that. What going forward do you think you want to continue or add to Bullett Performance?
We'd like to expand a little bit more on the biomechanics side of like swinging and pitching. Sorry. We've got, like I said earlier in the podcast, that we're looking at maybe expanding back a little bit more, implementing some more stuff like Driveline does. The 40 sensors or whatnot. Obviously, baseball's going in that way, to where now it's more biomechanics. They've got all these. They've got the Motus sleeve to understand valgus stress on the elbow. They've got all these 4D sensors that now can track, and sometimes you have what do they call it? The sensorless tracking, like the sensorless motion capture stuff, to where you can just take like an iPhone, or take like a specialized camera and just look at these guys swing, and then now you can analyze that, and now you can see like where we can really specifically help them in their training program or whatnot, and how do we just make it to take that next step, that next level. Tried to understand more of the Rapsodo stuff. Obviously, with our minor league population, our pro population, we want to make sure we understand what they're reading and what they're looking at too when they get to their teams, because obviously now baseball is going all analytics. So you need to understand, if you get a guy, and we want to get guys like that, we have to at least know enough to be dangerous, and know enough to have a conversation with them about maybe what's going on, or how do we add a little bit more of, maybe them being able to pronate their wrist so they can get a little bit more spin on their changeup or their slider, or supinate to, get some more spin on their slider or their curveball. How do you do that from a training standpoint? Maybe that's putting them in a certain position in an exercise to tap into some more of pronation or being able to get more tissue extensibility so that they can get there safely, right? So that's where we really take an individual approach, and that's what we want to, I guess, delve deeper into so that we can understand more of the skill side, more of the sport side, just to allow us to be more beneficial to them.
Definitely heading in that way. That's for sure. The game is changing. And I don't think all the science is bad. I think you're exactly right. It's how is it going to be used?
Sure.
How are we going to be able to interpret it and apply it
Sure.
to help different athletes? I mean, we're still fairly new. We haven't done our research or homework on all of it, but I know you're not a huge fan of some of the stuff out there, mainly the gurus, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, even from a training standpoint, like my philosophy is the tool's got to fit the person, right? So if you have a young, 12-year-old, 13-year-old kid, we've actually got some technology on a weight training standpoint that we can measure bar speed. We can measure bar speed from a lift, like say they're doing a deadlift. We have a piece of technology that we can hook up, and we can get some real-time data as how fast that bar is moving. Now, how that helps us is we can train to specifics of the training quality that we want. Say we want more speed. Well, that technology gives us, how fast that bar is going, how much velocity is on that bar. Now what that does is it allows us to be more specific on weight selection. And also we don't have to train like 1 rep max. We don't have to max out. That technology can kick us out, after enough data recorded, it can kick us out like an estimated 1 rep max. So we don't ever have to train near maximal. And now we can keep the risk down, right? There's a lot of risk when a kid goes for a 1 rep max or a max lift. We hear that a lot in high schools, which that's where we are like, well, how good was that lift? What was that lift? What was the quality of that lift? Now we don't even have to get near it, and we can keep our eyes on the technique and form. Would I use that with a 12-year-old or 13-year-old kid that doesn't have a basic knowledge of strength training? Absolutely not. I don't even use it with some of our pro guys. They don't have enough of the training experience, or they don't have a good baseline of strength. So we have strength standards that we shoot for as far as coaches. If they don't have that, there's no business even using some of that technology stuff. I'd rather get it off just lifting and have them lifting with quality and just shouting out, hey, we want more speed on that. If we want to get really specific, now our guys that have been here, like Kinger, for, he's been with me for almost 9 years since I started. Will I use it with him? Absolutely. He's got, enough experience with lifting, and we're looking for, just that little 1% change for him because he got such a long or a high training age. That's where we'll use it. That probably not with everybody though. That's where my philosophy is. Hey, it's got to be, that tool has to fit the client or the athlete, and if it doesn't, I don't even bring it out. And it's a $2,000 piece of equipment that just sits there and collects dust just for a couple of guys. I don't mind that. Eventually we'll get the population to where we could bring it out a few more, but that's my philosophy on that.
That makes more sense to me.
Absolutely, I agree.
With all this baseball stuff that people use, it's like, well, if it's like you say, if it's a 10-year-old kid, he doesn't even have the swing yet.
Sure.
to get on some of that stuff. That's what I love about this place, and it's about bettering the person before the athlete. So
I totally agree. I think you're definitely going to attract more athletes. I think
we hope so.
I mean, just hearing you talk, it's definitely I think you are creating that family atmosphere. I think you've got trust in pretty much all the athletes that's come here. I mean, they wouldn't continue to and bring other athletes with them in. So, I think it's fantastic.
If I was in freaking high school, junior high, whatever, this is where I would be.
Well, I say this too.
And pro ball. I wish I had somewhere to go in pro ball. I didn't. I just did whatever we did at spring training, and you go to the gym and you can only do so much.
Sure.
Yeah, and I mean there is something to the old school, but you fall into that trap. How do you know where your gains are?
Right.
Especially now when you can measure those.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
I think it's great. And like we had Bannister on, an MLB manager, and it's the same since talking with you. It's very easy, and you're not struggling to find what to say. It just rolls off the tongue as if you've been doing it your whole life. So there's something to that too. If you're out there and you need a place to go, Bullet Performance. What's
Well, he's not just blowing smoke.
No.
That's what you're trying to say.
Yes.
It's like it's not somebody that's just going to tell you what you want to hear.
No.
That's the good. Yeah.
No.
You want to go somewhere
and he knows,
that's going to be
but I'm
honest.
saying he knows what he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
His plan. He probably on the phone already has. If you're talking to somebody on the phone, I can guarantee you, your mind's already working on how to get this plan started for whoever this athlete's going to be.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, knowing that, I can just tell you, that, and that's why these guys are here.
Yeah. That's why it is kind of, if you guys hear the noise, they're getting after
Yeah,
it.
they've been working out the whole time. Really hasn't bothered me at all, honestly.
No, the music's been good.
No, I wanted to say, I appreciate you doing this.
Yeah.
Twitter handle, where can they find you?
Pretty much everything's Bullett Gym. So on Twitter, we're Bullett Gym, 2 L's, 2 T's. Facebook, same thing, Bullett Performance Training. And then Instagram is Bullett Gym as well. And then they can email us if they have any questions, bulletgym@gmail.com. And we also have an office line now, that's probably the biggest thing that I'm so happy that I made that investment to get an office phone, because from the beginning I did everything off my cell phone, and as much as I love all our clients, I love my life and I love my time with my son and putting the phone down a little bit. So our office line is 559-940-7545. Then give us a call, email, direct message us, anything, and we're looking for more. We want to keep growing, we want to keep building, and keep giving opportunities for athletes and clients, and not only our coaches to get better too. So that's pretty much. I want everybody to grow, internally and externally when people come in.
Nice, man. Well, again, thank you for doing this. That's episode 67. Brandon Bullett of Bullett Performance.
Appreciate it.
Guys.